Yo, and welcome into week 6 pre-gaming, the SEC, brought to you by Walk-On's Sports Bistro online. It's walk-ons.com. Find a location near you. And the chances are, if you're listening to an SEC podcast, there's a location that is close to you, or there soon will be a location close to you. Jacob Hester, Chris Doering, Big Terp here with you for another week. We are all living through, currently, as we are taping this, the Braves trying to clinch the NL East. It's getting a little hairy there in Miami. The Marlins have a runner on third in the 8th inning. So if we just yell any cuss word, just any of them, no, it is not you, listener. It is not your SEC team. It is, in fact, the Atlanta Braves. So go ahead and get that out of the way. CD, how you doing, my man?
Glad to be back with you. Are you ready to go to bat for me as not an LSU hater? I need you to vouch for me. You vouched for me in the past, and I don't even feel like I've deserved some of this LSU heat that I've gotten.
So today I did text the group, the pre-gaming group, and I'm like, hey, like, what's going on? I'm seeing on the message boards, and for LSU, that's Tiger droppings. And look, every SEC school has them. Like, basically, that Chris Doering was throwing some shade at Death Valley. Like, he said it is a morgue at 11 a.m. for early kicks, noon Eastern time, 11 Central. And it caught the wave, and the wave made its way to me like 97 times, because obviously they know we're boys. And I'm like, oh, I can't imagine CD just went out there and threw a shot. I mean, LSU's kind of adopted him during that 2019 run.
Yeah.
And I did go back. I'm a sicko with the film, and I went and I watched the film, and it wasn't that bad. I don't, the context of it, if you know the context of it, you didn't even take a shot. So I'm backing you up.
Thank you.
All LSU fans. Chris Doering loves Death Valley. He loves the atmosphere there. He didn't get to experience it because it was a Jefferson Pilot game when he played against LSU. It was some lean years in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
So his experience isn't the experience that we all have come to love.
Well, here's the thing. My experience, I played there my sophomore year at night. I think we won 52-7, 52-10.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like you said, it were lean years. And then we unfortunately went back there at the 11 a.m. Jefferson Pilot start. And it was like a ho-hum, like 24-10 game, just kind of dragging around, no energy. But me, it was more, I was lamenting the fact that this game should be at night. I would love to see Tennessee and LSU play under the lights in Death Valley. That was more, all I said was that my experience there that year was like a morgue, but I would want that game to be a primetime game. And unfortunately it's not.
It's okay. Like, I'm not going to take a shot at the swamp ever because we're boys, but hey, if you want to take a shot, it's fine.
I would never take
You've already done it.
Dude,
it should be a night game. Like,
yeah.
I realize the networks, and it happened to be on the doubleheader of CBS. And I understand that, they made a decision to go with a different game. And then of course, ESPN's not going to pass it up to put it on the SEC network, because why would you not put Tennessee LSU on ESPN following College Game Day? For them, once they had the opportunity and the game was left to them, yeah, they got to make a decision. And there were some people at LSU that certainly weren't happy. In fact, I heard through the grapevine, there were some people at the SEC office that weren't very happy. They thought this game should be a night primetime game as well. It's not. It's unfortunate because this isn't the Big Ten. In the Big Ten, I do radio with Bobby Carpenter every day. He thinks like big kickoffs for them, they should be noon Eastern kickoffs. Like, that's what they think is a big game, and that's okay. But at LSU, that's not the case. In fact, LSU's only played like 15 noon kicks in the history of Tiger Stadium ever. They've been playing for over 100 years.
15 noon kicks ever?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
So one of my two trips there.
That's what the stat guy told me.
Yeah. That's
I played one. I played one there.
Yeah, I played one there.
So if you played one, I played one, and I don't know what time they played football in 1936, but seems like it wasn't a noon kick. Might have been a 1 o'clock, might have been 11 a.m. I don't know. I'm just saying noon kicks.
It damn sure wasn't night, because I know they didn't have lights there for a long time. So had to be sometime in the afternoon. At any rate,
look,
man.
At any rate, they try to play under the lights in Death Valley, a Saturday night in Death Valley. There's no place like it. And again, unfortunately, you're not going to get that, and it's a part of your home field advantage. Now, you can't use it as an excuse.
Was there a place that you got that you didn't get to experience while you were in the SEC that you wish? Like, I literally wish that LSU would have been better when I played at Florida and could have had the experience of playing a big game against LSU at night under the lights when they were good. I regret that. I regret not getting a chance. I never got to play against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Would have liked to have had that opportunity. But is there a regret that you have about a stadium that you didn't get the chance to experience, maybe in the best time of day to experience it too?
I think I got pretty lucky. Like, I played in Tuscaloosa when they were a top team. They were like number 4 in the country at the time. I think they were undefeated. That was before Saban got there in 2005. They had a really good squad. Then I played against Saban when he was at Alabama. Auburn, we had epic battles. Within the West, I think we got to experience all of the meccas kind of at a high time at least once during my career. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I went to Athens, and one of the few times that we just got beat up on there playing against Georgia in 2004, we go to the Swamp, every other year. So I definitely got to experience that. I was there for the first jump pass when our guy, Tim, I swear, I still think to this day, it was a hell of a play by Tim. I still think he thought he was going to get called for traveling if his feet hit the ground on that first jump pass. But yeah, it was a big moment. I'm trying to think. Lexington, we lost as the number 1 team in the country. They stormed the field. That was, unfortunate on the other side of it, but that was a great environment. Now, I'm old, so there was only 12 teams in the SEC. There wasn't 14 teams. So Missouri and A&M, they weren't yet in the conference. I tell you what, I missed South Carolina, because if you didn't redshirt, right? If you didn't redshirt and you played 4 years, you were always going to miss one in the other division. And for me, it was South Carolina. We only played them at home one time, and that's a really good atmosphere. That's an atmosphere, obviously, that gets talked about a lot. We all know the pregame music. We know the scenes there, Williams-Brice. So for me, that's probably the one that I regret and I wish I could have played at.
I think we both agree that we like the expanded schedule, going to 9 games, having 3 permanent rivals, and rotating through all the other stadiums. I will hate, I think Florida LSU will probably go to the wayside in terms of an every year played game, which is
probably good for y'all the way that series has gone recently, but gosh, it hurts me. I love that game. I mean, and it doesn't mean to you what it means to me. I think if you're my age group, and maybe it started in 97, probably not. I feel like it started in the early 2000s, but it's become a series that has been a lot of fun. There's pettiness, there's some hate, there's some respect, there's some craziness with fog and fake field goals that bounce right back up to the kicker. I mentioned the jump pass for Tebow. I mean, there's been so many moments in that series. And I think for my school and for your school, it's going to probably go to the wayside. And there's some people that might actually be happy about that, but I'm not one of them.
I know you said it doesn't mean the same to me, and certainly LSU wasn't that good when I was at Florida in the 90s, but I do remember the years of Tommy Hodson and
played every year, since what, the 70s.
I grew up watching that game and watching the great players that LSU had, and it was a weird series back in the day because it was the visitor that usually won that series for a long stretch of games. And so Dalton Hilliard was another guy that I remember as a kid, like just big fan of Todd Kinchin. I mean, there's just a lot of different LSU fans that a lot of LSU players that I watched when I was younger that it was a good rivalry. So hopefully we'll retain that in some form, fashion. But changes are definitely coming. But I feel like we're talking off-season stuff right now. We're in the middle of the season, heading into week 6, and here we are discussing changes in structure of the SEC, which sounds a little more like a June topic to me.
Yeah, you know what? We're versatile. That's all we are. We're just versatile. Okay. Yeah, we can go here, we can go there, we can go everywhere, and that's what we did to start the show. And I'll be honest with you, for my hold the beer, as we typically start the show with a hold my beer, and my hold my beer moment over the weekend, I'm going to be short and I'm going to be sweet. My hold my beer for this week 5 in the SEC, Alabama's got their swagger back, and you need to be on the lookout. And that's it. Alabama has it back. You better be on the lookout. They figured some things out. They've got some receivers stepping up. They just put a backup quarterback in there and didn't miss a beat. They just ran for another 75-yard touchdown against Arkansas. I mean, it just seemed like every time I blinked, there was a 75-yard touchdown run. They figured out some of the deficiencies that they had. There wasn't a lot, but they got those things figured out. My hold my beer is Alabama swagger because it's back.
we're going to talk about that a little bit more. My hold the beer is going to be a little bit more of a negative, sarcastic one, in that it stays in that same Alabama-Arkansas game. You guys thought that Arkansas's pass defense was bad. Well, hold my beer for a second. We're going to show you what bad really looks like as we, in the first quarter, Bryce Young throws for 173 yards. If Bryce stays in that whole game, it's probably 52-10, probably throws for, north of 400 plus yards. And I don't understand it. And maybe we save this conversation for when we get into talking about where Arkansas is in our last call segment.
Yeah.
But like, dude, they played so much man coverage, and they play so much man coverage with no help in the middle of the field. Like, you letting these receivers from Alabama get free runs at you, and you got no help there. I mean, it was like,
I feel like arena ball.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I have the utmost respect for Barry Odom. One of the reasons why the Arkansas program is where it is right now in the third year of Sam Pittman's tenure there is like, he came in and they got that defense playing really well, really quickly. Assignment sound, technique strong, just doing the little things correctly. And then all of a sudden this year, I don't know what happened. And that's not even mentioning the 317 yards that they gave up on the ground.
Yeah.
I haven't even gone back to count it yet though, Hess, but like, there were multiple touchdown runs where backs didn't even get touched. Like, they were such large holes. There's nobody in beyond the first level there of the defense. Like,
nope.
It just, to me, I can't believe that this is what Arkansas's defense has become. So my hold the beer is say, hey, you thought we were bad. Let me show you what bad looks like.
Yeah. And you've heard me say this before. I think Arkansas over the last 2.5 years, the reason that I enjoyed watching them so much is they were interested in tackling when nobody else in college football seemed like they were. But even some of that, it's gone away. When you played them.
They can't tackle at all.
Look, and I know they lost 2 of their starting linebackers, but Bumper Pool's still there. They still got guys that we've seen do it before. And even Bumper Pool, I respect the hell out of Bumper Pool, not because of his name. Now his name's a part of it, but because of his play on the field. And he looked like he was in the spin cycle a couple of times, missed tackles. When he was a spy, he shot the wrong gap. We haven't seen that from him.
Yeah. Yeah. And ironically, the best player on that defense is one that wasn't on the team last year, that transferred in from the opposing team.
He was on the other team
Saturday. Yeah. So it's an interesting time in the SEC. And just as a whole, man, like, I think still we're almost halfway through the season, and the same debate that we had in July at SEC Media Days in Atlanta is the one we're having now. Like, who's the third best team in the conference? Lots of different varying opinions on a lot of these teams that are kind of jumbled up in the middle right now.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, a lot of the narratives that we had, I mean, that was one. It was, a narrative. We're going to get to LSU later, but like the narrative for LSU was, I don't really think they're the third best team, but they're talented and they can probably find a way to beat a lot of teams. And like, I still feel like that about them. The things that we thought about Texas A&M coming into the season, I mean, they're playing out just like we thought they would. So like, some of that stuff is still there and it's playing out. And the third best team conversation, it's still being debated because, I mean, even though Kentucky lost, and I mean, we're going to get to that game later on. Like, even though they lost, I'm like, man, how many chances did you need in that game to prove that you were the third best team in the SEC?
Big Terp, do me a favor, maybe next week or the following week when we get to the true midpoint of the season, I'd like to have a segment where we look back, like what we knew, what we thought we knew. I think you're right. The Texas A&M take that you and I had has been spot on. But
we got some eyes. We got some eyes. So, full disclosure, CD and I won't mention names. We went to a dinner in Atlanta, SEC Media Day, and it was full of people that cover the SEC on a national level. And when we threw out our Texas A&M takes, we got some eyeballs shot right back at us. And we're like, I'm just telling you, that's how it's going to play out. And we were pretty confident about it. And it's played out exactly like we said it would. Like, per position, per game, almost like it's played out that way.
Well, let's start. Well, I think this is a good place to start with our last call, Big Terp. I mean, you want to rip through the West, and maybe we do start with Texas A&M?
I think we should do that. Let's do it right now. Beers have been held. Let's get some last call. So, Aggies, CD. We'll start with you because you're eager here.
I am eager, and I don't want people to come off thinking that I'm, anti Texas A&M at all. It's just the things that we had concerns about. Hess,
like I never played against Texas A&M. Like I would have no reason to have any bias against Texas A&M.
Yeah,
they weren't in the league when we played in the league.
Yeah, nor do we have any bias against any other teams in the league. I genuinely love all of these teams in this conference, but I would say, the thing that stands out to me is exactly what the issues were last year. Like, how did we not get the offensive line fixed from last year? How did we not get the receiving core fixed from last year? How did we not get the quarterback position fixed from last year? Now, I feel terribly for Haynes King and for Max Johnson because they're under duress every single time they drop back to throw. But all of the same issues last year are still the same issues this year. They look very much like the team that we saw last year that struggled early in the season, and maybe they'll be able to get some things together. But the other big question that we talked about on the show this morning, Hess, was like, the excuse is, man, we're really young at a lot of positions. Well, why are you really young? It's not like Jimbo Fisher took over this program this year or last year, right? He's been there. This is 5th year. Like, why are there so many young guys that are playing such crucial roles on this team right now?
And here's the deal, and you know this as well as I do. If you're a elite program in the SEC, you're probably going to be young almost every single year because your juniors are going to the NFL early and you don't get a chance to get your players for 4 years most of the time. It happens at Georgia, at Bama, at Florida, at LSU, all across the board. That happens everywhere. And you have to be able to develop young football players to be ready to play. Like when I sit here and I turn on the tape, they've got talented freshmen. Now, though, in college football, it's not like it used to be. You don't redshirt. You're not, hey, let's baby step this thing. If you are a true freshman that's playing, you got to be counted on because you're going to have a young team in spots if you want to be elite. That's just Georgia's going through it on defense right now. They're still number 2 in the country. We'll get to them, but like I'm looking at the receiver position. I see the talent. I do. But their receivers right now on Pro Football Focus, which – look, I trust these grades because I watch the tape and it tells the same story that my eyes do. Your receivers are grading out at 53.3%, 60.9%, 53.8%, 53.3%, 48%. That's your receiver group since Anaya Smith went out. That's your group. Yep. That's who you're rolling with right now. And it's young football players. It's hard to play that position as a young football player. I'm not saying it's not. It truly is. There's a lot of things that you see that even in the day and age of 7-on-7 and throwing the football in high school that you haven't seen. But you know what? Like, you have to have young football players step up, and they're just not doing that. When I look at the grades at the defensive side of the football, they had a lot of 5-star defensive linemen. Listen to their defensive lineman grades: 58.5%, 52.9%, 44.5%, 53.7%, and 51.2%. That's failing grades. It's failing grades across the board. They currently right now, they have 3 starters on offense and 2 starters on defense that have passing grades for the year. And those would all be considered C grades. They're in the 70s, low 70s.
So let me ask you a question. And this is a tough position for you to be in because of your relationship with Jimbo Fisher. But is this coaching staff not doing a good enough job at developing the talent that they have or putting them in positions to be successful with the schemes that they're utilizing or what? All
right. So when you watch the scheme, and I've made no bones about it, I'm here doing this show because of Jimbo Fisher. He gave me an opportunity to play running back. And so I'm forever grateful for him. But when I turn on the tape, I think it's a lot of doubles, 2x2. We're going to, kind of roll with this. We're not going to have a lot of shifts. We're not going to have a lot of motions. There's not going to be a lot of new creativity in the offense. And I think they're struggling because of it. And typically if you go doubles, like you go 2x2, like you think you have an advantage athletically over them. You think your guys can get open without having to create, hey, I'm going to move here so I can hit this route on the move and the DB's late getting there, whatever it might be. You're trying to create an advantage with the movement, with the shifts. That's why you do all that. You don't do it because it looks pretty. You do it to create an advantage, and they're not doing things like that. And on the offensive line, they're not holding up. I mean, it's just a lot of things. I mean, see, I could sit here and I could point out 7-8 different things to why the offense just isn't working. And one of them is, I think, the lack of formations. I think one of them is when you look at the right side of their offensive line. I think they're struggling a little bit. I think there's positions where they're just not developed like I think Texas A&M thought they were going to be.
Yeah. I just
I mean, when you turn on tape, I mean, you're the same as me. You like watching tape. You turn on offense. It's a lot of 2x2 kind of vanilla offense.
It's painful to watch. It's hard. It's difficult. Nothing looks easy for them offensively. Everything is a challenge. That there are plays to be made at times, but protection breaks down or the quarterback misses them. But I don't know that they do enough for the receivers. And it's funny you mentioned, using motion to help guys get open or different stacks and switch releases and things like. I don't know if there was a more outside of that 2019 LSU offense. I don't know if there was a more fun offense to watch than 2020 Alabama. What Steve Sarkisian did, and those were very good receivers that could get themselves open, but yet you'd see them motioning Devontae Smith around. You'd see them being able to work into a stack where they could get, defensive backs playing on different levels and get free releases and crossing guys up. Like that was maybe one of the most fun football offenses to watch. And you're right. That's a far cry from what we're seeing in College Station right now.
Yeah. And Jimbo came out earlier, but 2-3 weeks ago, and said the plan has always been to kind of have somebody in place to call plays, maybe by year 5, year 6, whatever it might be. I never thought I'd hear him say that. Now that it's out there in the ether and they are struggling offensively, when you look at the stats, it's just not what we thought they would be.
But what does that do, Hess? Like calling plays is one thing. You need a new influence to inject new ideas and new schemes into what you're doing right now. Just calling the same plays is not going to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish, right?
It can't. My opinion, it needs to be an outsider.
Yeah.
It needs to be somebody that's not been in that building. And that's no disrespect to those coaches that are in that building. Actually, I've played for some of those coaches. I think they're really good football coaches. But if you want to switch it up, it can't be with the same principles in the coaching tree that they learned. You go and you bring in someone from the outside to bring in new ideas, new philosophies. And if you want to, pair some of the things that you've always done that you believe in, now, that's always a slippery slope as well. But like that feels like it almost has to be done, CD.
Speaking of those coaches, like for some reason in the offseason, didn't they just reshuffle a lot of the positions that they were coaching? And I
quarterback went to tight ends went to quarterback, receiver went somewhere. Yeah, I think James Coley went from, he was at one day. I know Damian Craig was at receivers. He goes to quarterback. I think Daryl Dickey was at tight end. He went to receivers. Coley was at receivers, went to tight end or some version of that, which was it was a head scratcher. Yeah. But now we know, like, they knew there was going to be issues with this offense and they were trying to, jolt some life into it.
Yeah. All right, Big Turk.
We could spend the whole pregaming the SEC on what's going on right now currently in College Station, where they are a 24.5-point dog this week against Alabama. So we need to move on.
No doubt.
But hey, like you said, Hess, it's our show. We can talk about what we want. CD, I like that idea of coming back and revisiting stuff at the midway point. But I do want to go back to, like you said, you guys had preseason thoughts in the negative sense on A&M. You were lower than consensus on Arkansas. Arkansas has now dropped 2 straight. Schedule's not getting easier here. You got at Mississippi State, at BYU coming up. So Razorbacks last week get down early to Bama, fight back, and then Bama pulls away late. Let's go last call on the Razorbacks here, CD.
Well, what were we talking about in the offseason? It was how they were going to replace the production of Treylon Burks. I don't know that they've necessarily been able to do that. They certainly don't have the one guy. It's been kind of more by committee, but I don't see consistent explosive plays in the passing game. The running game's been tremendous. Obviously, I think, Hester, that they have the best offensive line in the conference. I mean, and that's not saying a ton, because I think there's a lot of very average offensive lines. And I may take that back, because I did see some market improvement from Alabama on Saturday. But we can get into that in a bit later. But like, Arkansas's run game is legit. But the things that we've seen on defense, and we were concerned about it, losing Hayden Henry, losing Grant Morgan, obviously, I
think that's been the biggest hit.
Yeah.
Treylon Burks has been massive, but I think, like, if two players to make up for one. But I think the two linebackers and losing the ability to do things that other teams didn't do, which was play physical in the middle, get guys on the ground, they missed that more than anything.
Have you ever seen a team, though, that is a bigger dichotomy with what they've been able to do prior to the Alabama game in terms of sacking the quarterback and putting pressure on the opposing quarterback, and yet being so bad in the back half of the defense? Like, normally those things work hand in hand together, and yet it's kind of been quite the disconnection here.
No, I'm with you. And that defense has always been one that I could turn on the tape and I can like immediately know, okay, here's the front, here's the coverage, here's what they're going to do. And, here's where guys are supposed to be. And I lost a little bit of that. So it makes you think some of that is communication. Some guys, and remember, they lost Greg Brooks and Fouché from that defensive backfield that are now starting for LSU.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of starts.
Not to mention Catalan, who, goes out with the injury as well. And
exactly. So, we're being pretty obviously harsh here on the defense, I think, because we've come to expect, a great defense. It's not elite, but a great defense that you knew exactly what their identity was. And you start talking about look, Greg Brooks is a guy that we just saw in the LSU Alabama game. That's a dude that you lost, and you've lost multiple dudes because of graduation, because of injury, because of transfers.
This is no disrespect, but I honestly believe that there's a couple different schools in this conference that are suffering now because the expectation level got overinflated due to early success that probably was achieved prematurely. Like, I look at Arkansas being one of those teams. South Carolina is probably another one.
It's a great point.
Honestly believe that, Arkansas had a lot of work to do, and the foundation, they needed to rebuild from the ground up, and they're doing that, and they're on a great pace right now. But people are going to look at it as taking a step back this year if they don't right the ship, and it's going to be viewed as a poor season. And I don't know if it should, because of really where they were and some of the overachievement that took place.
Some of that's fair. I think it is. I think when you overachieve, when you're ahead of schedule, like we like to say, maybe our expectations change a little bit. But I'll be completely honest. If you would have said, hey, Arkansas is going to have the 13th points per game defense and the 13th yards per game defense, I would have called you a liar to your face. Like, it's still shocking to see them there. It makes sense. Like, we lay it out, and how many guys you're missing, and new guys, and even some of the new guys aren't playing right now. But that's been completely shocking to me. And I think the fans realize what Sam Pittman is, which is the perfect person for that job. They're going to win a game. I still think they're going to be the big boy. I still think they're going to find a way. Again, I don't know who that is, but this is a team that they had the A&M game. They had a play here or there, certainly the fumble. If not, they win that game. And Alabama's Alabama, and you're just not quite ready to have a matchup with the number 1, number 2 team in the country and go out there and be successful, which there's no shame in that, but they got to get their defensive issues fixed, or it's going to be a long day when they play some of these teams still up on their schedule.
No doubt.
All right, Big Terp, who we got?
Let's go to by the way, last call, NL East still runs through Atlanta.
It does. Chop on. Let's go. Braves.
If you're a Mets fan listening to this podcast, it sucks to suck. Yeah, sorry about it.
It does. It does. We love you for your SEC love, but you made a bad choice in your baseball team.
Sorry, I'm a Falcons fan. I made a bad choice there.
Oh, God. Yes, you did.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a Bush League Bolts fan, so, hey, we're there together.
It's all right. Other side of that Arkansas-Bama game. Let's go, Bama. That's
go ahead, Hess. You started.
Again, for me, it's easy. It's an easy one. They got their swagger back after the close call against Texas. They just okay, well, they do what they do. They find a way to kind of hone back in, refocus. I've been in those meeting rooms with Nick. He's the best at doing it. He's going to have his teams ready to play. And a game like that, he can coach off that for the rest of the year. And they had to have young receivers step up. And they've done that over the last couple of weeks. That was the missing piece. We talked about it last week. If that continues to happen, good luck. Just good luck against them. Yeah. They're going to be the old Alabama that you've got to play your absolute best to go out there and beat them. And they played angry. They played pissed off last week, almost like, okay, y'all think they should be in this game? Y'all think the 17 points is too much, like these two idiots on this podcast? Okay, watch this. We're about to go house these boys, and we're about to go show them exactly what Alabama football is all about. That's what I'm going to take away. That's my last call for them. You've been put on notice because Alabama seems like they are back to playing that style where they want to prove to everyone, every game, every play, that they're Alabama football.
Well, a couple things that I want to talk about, and you said it was plain and simple, the wide receivers. The wide receivers are a big part of that, but I thought the offensive line took a big step forward as well. Heading into the game, we talked an awful lot about their struggles over the last 5 games that Bryce Young has quarterbacked on the road, true road games, and how they struggled. Now, they still had too many penalties, 10 penalties in the ball game on Saturday, but they only gave up 1 sack. And they were able to run the ball for over 300 yards. And this was against, the #1 sack defense in the entire country, that the quarterbacks combined were under very little pressure the entire afternoon. I still think there's room for improvement. I went back and counted probably 6 or 7 drops, balls that should have been caught by the receivers. But there were a lot of young guys that showed up. Kobe Prentice was tremendous. Isaiah Bond had a couple big plays. Good to have JoJo Earl back in there as well, scoring a touchdown. So there was a lot to hang your hat on. And what looked like it could have been a very competitive, tough test for them going on the road was looked pretty easy early on. But I'll say this: biggest play of the Alabama season to date, 3rd and 15, Jalen Milroe scrambles when they're up 5, 77-yard run, and the complexion of the game changes there at the beginning of the 4th quarter.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also Jahmyr Gibbs, this was his Alabama breakout performance, and you kind of been waiting on it. Like, you saw flashes of it. This was the breakout performance, and if they get him going,
I'm sad because I took a dark horse flyer on Jahmyr Gibbs as my Heisman Trophy guy, like if the off the radar guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was like plus 800 maybe or something. If he would have been having the opportunities early in the season, this guy could be squarely in the Heisman Trophy race.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a lot of people have been waiting for the opportunity to see him get out in the open like he did, and he certainly did not disappoint.
What else we got, Big Terp?
The only SEC ball carrier who was moving faster than Jahmyr Gibbs on that one of those long touchdown runs, Quinshon Judkins, freshman, 106 yards, 2nd leading rusher now in the conference, tied with Marshawn Lloyd for 6 touchdowns. That's the most in the conference. So let's go Ole Miss here. Big win there. Big win. What do we got here, CD?
I think we missed a perfect opportunity for hold my beer between Quinshon Judkins and Barian Brown, 2 true freshmen that have speed to burn, that were making big play after big play, matching each other. Like, it's fun to watch Quinshon Judkins, and we heard a lot about him in the preseason, but having a little bit more opportunity with Zach Evans having been banged up and what he brings in terms of home run threat, it's fun to watch that offense, a little different offense. And credit Lane Kiffin for understanding his roster, playing to the strengths of the personnel that he has on the depth chart. They've certainly put the onus on the offensive line and the running backs to be kind of the drink that stirs the straw that stirs the drink there. But we would be remiss not to talk about defense, and the defense, particularly the red zone defense, is what ultimately was the deciding factor in that game. They able to only allow Kentucky 19 points at 5 red zone trips, get 2 turnovers down there in that part of the field late. I was a little skeptical after I watched what happened with Tulsa running for 260 yards against them the previous week. But even with Chris Rodriguez back, they only gave up a little over 100 yards defensively on the ground.
I wish if Kavasier Smoke stays in that game, that felt like it was a really good duo for them, because Chris Rodriguez, you knew he couldn't play as much as he typically plays. I mean, I get it. Like, being in shape and being in football shape is completely different. You can do everything that you want to do in practice until you start getting hit, until you start going out there and actually playing plays. And there was times he had to come out of the game. And once Kavasier Smoke wasn't in the game, they just didn't have an advantage. After you get past those 2 backs, the other backs for Kentucky, they've struggled, in my opinion. They've had some spot stuff here and there, but that's a position that's kind of struggled for them. That's why they only averaged 81 yards on the ground, because it was really Cavassier Smoke, and that was kind of where it stopped. And so I would have been interested to see what they could have done if they would have had their duo there, but you have to credit Ole Miss. And Ole Miss right now is actually playing a really high level of defense. They're only giving up 198 yards through the air, 117 on the ground, and only 11.8 points per game. I mean, this is a defense that is completely improved. They don't look like the same unit that we've seen over the last couple of years. And so I think that gives them a different dynamic. It gives them a toughness that they haven't necessarily had. When you run the football, that's also going to give you a toughness. They run the football at a better clip than anybody in the SEC. I mean, when you look at rushing yards per game, they're at 261.8. Next to them, you got to go 10 full yards to Alabama's 251.4. I mean, this Ole Miss team, their identity is we want to run the football and we want to play physical defense. And I realize that if you don't do a deep dive into the conference, if you're just kind of assuming because you think you know the coaching style of Lane Kiffin, you're like, oh, they're throwing it around with Jackson Dart. That's not how they're winning games. They're winning games because they've got one of the most talented running back rooms in the country, and they play a high level of physicality on defense. So that's who they are. That's their identity. That's who they're going to try to be the rest of the season. Look, and I can appreciate that. I mean, Kentucky's a team that they hang their hat on all those things, and they have more points than Kentucky. Was there opportunities for the Wildcats? 1,000. But if you don't take advantage of them, and I'm the other team, I'm going to try to have the last laugh, which Ole Miss did. They had one opportunity at the end of the game. They stripped the ball, and they won the game.
Yeah, I would say the one thing I want your opinion on, because I mentioned this morning. We were talking to a guest from Ole Miss, and like I was taking notes during the game on how comfortable I felt like Jackson Dart looked and how in command he was of the offense and some of the nice touch throws that he was able to drop in there to some of the receivers. Like I feel really good about where he is. And then I look up at the box score and he's completed, 52% of his passes. Obviously a bigger threat in the run game as the season's worn on, but where are you with the quarterback position as a whole and Jackson Dart specifically?
I don't think that it's going to be an offense, CD, that really calls for him to be Matt Corral ever. I think it's an offense that's going to, and I don't want to say game manager. I think he's more talented than that, but it's going to be an offense that's going to ask him to do certain things. And as long as he does those things, they're not going to try to make him be supernatural in any other aspect. At least that's what it feels like watching that game, because I'm like you. I'm like, he's being efficient. Like he's making plays. And I look at the box score. I'm like, have they not updated this yet? Is this halftime stats? But if we're saying that, isn't he doing exactly what they want him to do?
Exactly. Be a distributor of the football.
Just continue to do it. Again, like, okay. So, and when I'm doing off campus on SiriusXM, and some of my co-hosts are from other, they played in other conferences or on other conference channels on Sirius. And, they think they haven't done a deep dive into Ole Miss. Okay. They just assume they're like, oh, Jackson Dart must be throwing for like 300 a game. Oh, Lane likes to spin it around. That was like the narrative last week about that game. Oh, man, these styles, they couldn't be any different. I'm like, actually, if you turn on the tape, they want to be the same team. Like, what? Like, that's who they want to be. Yeah. Ole Miss wants to run the football and play defense with a physical nature. It's just, it's like, nope. They almost don't believe it, but that's Lane. Look, he does as good a job as anybody, I'd say, in the country of, okay, I've got A, B, and C. Well, I'm going to have my scheme match A, B, and C.
Yep.
I'm not going to try to force them to do something they can't.
And that's the sign of a good coach, right? That's the sign of somebody that understands his personnel and understands that I got to put guys in positions to be successful and utilize those skill sets.
All right, Big Terp. I know I'm talking my tongue dry here. Let's mow through. Let's go through some rapid fire last call here.
Yeah, let's get Kentucky, other side of that game, Georgia and LSU before we start spinning it forward. So, yeah, let's go with Kentucky. They lost that close one, battled back from 14-0. I know. Hasman, you were hurting during that game.
I was hurting. Okay, so watching that game, like I was going through a wave of emotions because like you just felt like Kentucky has fought so hard to be in a position as a top 10 team to go on the road and play against a damn good Ole Miss team and to have so many opportunities to win that game. I mean, we could go back and we could spend 10 minutes apiece on each play. I mean, when's the last time you saw a kickoff return for a touchdown where your own guy is sitting there and he's watching the ball and you trip over him?
Yeah.
I mean, you hit the game-winning touchdown pass and it's a legal procedure because your veteran quarterback didn't allow everyone to get set.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on and on and on. I mean, there was many, many moments in that game. Now, Ole Miss went and won it. And I'm giving them all the credit in the world, but I thought Kentucky was ready for that. And I think that's what surprised me the most. I thought in that situation, if the situation arises, they are going to grab it and they're going to go win this game. And when it did, they didn't grab it. And they had 3 or 4 chances to grab it, and they missed every time. That was the most surprising thing over the college football weekend for me.
I look at that the same way as you do, but I also look at it as glass half full too, because this was a team that was on the verge of getting blown out early in that game. It looked like Ole Miss was going to give it to them, and they found a way to fight back in that game. They also found a way to fight back when they make these mistakes. Will Levis fumbles the ball inside the 20-yard line late in the fourth quarter, and the defense goes out there, gets a 3 and out, gets the ball right back for them. They made plays when they had to. They just didn't finish as well. And sometimes that's part of the growth process, Hess. You know that, like, a team that's not used to being in those positions in meaningful games sometimes has to struggle and fail to learn how to be successful. And I think that game leaves a lot of Kentucky fans feeling empty and that they let one get away. But I also think there's a bit of feeling a little moral victory as well. Like, I don't feel any different about Kentucky than I did in the preseason. And maybe I didn't give Ole Miss enough credit in the preseason. That was a better Ole Miss team than I expected to see when I made that 11-1 selection for Kentucky. But I do still think that Kentucky is a quality team. And I do still think they have a chance to beat Georgia on November 19th. And I'm going to ride and die on that hill until I actually see it happen otherwise on November.
No, they're absolutely a quality team. I still think they're in the conversation for third best team in the SEC. I think it was just the way they lost that game with the opportunities with, Will Levis, and you felt like it was coming as soon as he kept his own read, like the whole
Everyone
time.
knew that. Everyone knew, like, we all had the same feeling at the same time. We're like, no.
Yeah. And look, was there a call that could have gone Kentucky's way? There was, but there was also on the next series, there was a face mask that could have gone Ole Miss's way. And so, like, I don't think that was the story of the game. Was it a part? Yeah, it was a part, but there was a lot of plays in that game that became a part of the story. So it was an opportunity for Kentucky. They didn't take advantage of that opportunity, but for them, they still have everything in front of them as they control their own destiny in the SEC. And we'll see if the Wildcats can bounce back. All right, Big Terp, we going LSU or Georgia?
Let's go to Georgia real quick. Is this what's up with Georgia? Is it the curse of Peter Burns, or is it deep?
What's up?
What's up with that?
What's up?
Yeah, I think it's Peter Burns. I think we should fully blame Peter Burns. He's going out there. No. So this is difficult, okay? Because the first game, I'm like, oh my God, should we give him the trophy now after you beat Oregon 49-3? And then you beat South Carolina on the road 48-7. And I'm like, okay, is anybody going to be in the same realm as Georgia? And then they play Kent State, and Kent State formation them to death. I mean, Kent State ran the goddamn Maryland eye against Georgia. I mean, they emptied the bag, and I'm like, okay, they still won the game by 17 points, but I'm like, Kent State had a pretty nice game plan. And then you play a Missouri team that should not have had any juice. Missouri should have had zero juice. I credit Eli Drinkwitz not only for Tank Top Tuesdays, but for having his team ready to play. Dude, They lost that Auburn game 7 different ways. How in the world did he have his team ready to play a game against the then number 1 team in the country? That was amazing to me. And they had an opportunity to win that thing. I mean, if they don't get the false start penalty after they're on the 1-yard line and they go score, I think we're talking about Missouri pulling off the major upset. So credit Georgia. They found a way. And for them, they got to stay focused because they've got Auburn and Vanderbilt before they get to Jacksonville. They got to continue to stay focused. There's some things in the run game that are going to be question marks. The health of some of the receivers is a question mark. The young defense, and we saw them arguing on the sidelines, that's a question mark. Do I think they're in the tier 1 of college football? Yeah, they're still firmly in tier 1, but some things have started to pop up that Kirby and his staff can now coach off of. Now, you've got Auburn and Vanderbilt. You're going to be heavy. You're a 30-point favorite against Auburn. You're going to be a 40-point favorite against Vanderbilt. You stay locked in, you stay focused. You have 2 get-right games, and then you move on and you get ready for Jacksonville. Of course, when I say Jacksonville, y'all know I'm talking about the Florida-Georgia game. Then you have Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Kentucky. That's the bulk of your schedule you have to be ready for. They've got 2 games to get ready for that point.
Let me ask you this question. I asked it to somebody else this week on the radio. That 4-game stretch, Jacksonville against Florida, home against Tennessee, on the road in Starkville against Mississippi State, on the road in Lexington against Kentucky. What's the record for the Bulldogs?
3-1.
3-1. Are more likely that they go 4-0 or 2-2 in that stretch?
4-0.
4-0. Okay.
That's a tough slate.
Very tough.
I mean, you go to Starkville and Lexington. If you don't do deep dives into this conference and you think those are easy games, then you just don't watch a lot of SEC football. Yeah. That's 2 places that are difficult to play that don't get enough credit. Lexington was the best atmosphere that I've been in the SEC in 5 years last year. Yeah. It was the best. Is it 100,000 people? It's not, but that doesn't make an atmosphere. It was fantastic. Like, they are excited about where their football program is. And we know what Starkville can be, the cowbells, the whole deal. So yeah, look, that's tough. And I can see them losing the game. In fact, I think they will lose the game. It'll be 3-1, but I think they're more likely to go 4-0 than 2-2, but it's which games. And look, Florida and Tennessee are going to take a lot of mental and physical just pounding to your football team. And, that's why like Mississippi State and Kentucky being on the road those next 2 weeks is even more important, but they got to be ready for that. And they got to take care of business the next 2 weeks, because that's who we're going to find out exactly where Georgia's at. And they, for them, they probably hope that they don't have to have help, right? If Tennessee or Kentucky only has 1 SEC loss.
Real quick on Georgia. I will say that the sign of a champion is a team that can fix whatever ails them in time to pull the game out. And they did that. They were able to lean on the offensive line. The offensive line had their struggles in the first 3 quarters, way too much penetration, and credit Missouri. As you mentioned, Coach Drink had those guys ready to go, but I thought they made some serious disruption with the penetration up front, not only against the run, but rushing the passer, disrupting, any rhythm that Stetson Bennett ever tried to get into. But at the end of the day, they leaned on that offensive line, and this was a team that rushed the ball for 3 yards per carry through the first 3 quarters, only to rush for about 7 yards a carry in the fourth quarter. So going back to the roots, Hess, sometimes you got to go back to the roots, who you used to be, and remind yourself that you still got that in you somewhere down deep inside.
Yeah, I am not bailing on the Georgia Bulldogs. I think we need to relax, take a deep breath. They'll do so as well. They're going to come out. I expect them to win big this weekend, and they'll get back on track. All right, I'll go ahead and dive into my last call for LSU. They're going to fight like hell. They're going to play to the final whistle. They're going to try to find themselves back into every game. They make incredible halftime adjustments. But in the SEC, you can do that in some places. You can't do that everywhere. And they're about to get into the portion of their schedule where you might get too far behind if you start off slow.
Who's the worst slow starting team in the conference? Kentucky, Georgia, LSU. I mean, there's a
the list is long and distinguished, if you will. And they did it against Mississippi State. They're down 13-0. They get the ball. They go have a hell of a 2-minute drill. They score. It's 13-7 and different ball game. Same thing against Auburn. They put a drive together. Actually, they get a defensive touchdown. B.J. Ojolari makes a hell of a play. Jay Ward picks it up. Then they go get a touchdown right before half. They make it 17-14, and they make enough plays somehow, some way, throwing for 5 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
You won a game in the SEC on the road in which you were down 17-0, and you threw for 5 yards in the second half.
In 2022. This wasn't 1957.
Not 1922. But I love the fight. I love that Brian Kelly's already got the ear of the team. You don't come back if you don't. You're not able to come back in games against Mississippi State and Auburn if you don't. He does. I think Matt House is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country at coming up with a game plan and adjusting. I think he's just shown that what he did to Mike Leach in Mississippi State, nobody else has done that.
Yeah.
Nobody's done that. And he did it, and he's adjusted against Florida State. He's made adjustments against Mississippi State, even though they did have first half success, and he made adjustments against Auburn. Look, you watch that tape, they're playing, it looks like they're playing a version, like almost like a match 44. They're playing like a version of quarters, and they've got matchups with the linebacker and with the nickel, and the safeties were taught all during the week. And you could tell because they were taught, okay, you're going to play quarters, but if you're not threatened, you're coming downhill now if the quarterback gets out of the pocket, which that's what they thought they needed to do. And Auburn roasted them. Like Ashford went out there and made the plays he had to make, and credit to him. But then they came back, and Brian Kelly said it going into halftime to Katie George, like, look, we thought they were going to do this. They didn't. We got to adjust. They adjusted. It was a different ball game. And so you can do that, but you can't do it every week. You certainly can't do it this week against Tennessee, CD. That will get you beat because Tennessee will have 24 points, and they're playing at that pace that's so fast. If they get the ball coming out of half, they can score in 3 plays. All of a sudden you look up, you're down 31 and you can't come back.
You know, the thing about this LSU team is, I agree with you. They play really hard. The offense is not the most aesthetically pleasing to watch, but the defense is a lot of fun. And you and I spent a lot of Thursday evening last week texting about the LSU defense and what they do. And the reason that they're so good on that side of the ball, I agree with you. Matt House is tremendous. It was a great hire by Brian Kelly, getting him to come back from the NFL to the SEC. But they have such athleticism on the defensive side of the ball, such versatility, the way that they can use all these different guys in so many different ways, and how fast they play, how physical they are when they get to the ball. The rally to the football is amongst the best that I've seen in a long time. And the tackling is usually very, very sound. So I like what they're able to do in terms of showing different looks and fooling opposing quarterbacks. And it's just fun to see how Matt House is using all of these different athletes in so many different ways.
All right. So quickly, let's spin this into the pre-gaming portion of pre-gaming the SEC. We've got a handful of games. We have, 3, 4, 5 games that we want to preview here in this episode. Let's go ahead and start there. LSU, Tennessee. We've already talked about it. It's a noon Eastern, 11 local time kick. You have Tennessee. We know who they are. We know they want to go fast. We talked about the LSU defense. I think the story here is LSU's offense versus Tennessee's defense. Tennessee's defense will show that they'll give up yards. They'll give up points. LSU's offense, though, has to make strides because you can't play the same that you played against Auburn and expect to be successful against Tennessee. Like, you were holding on to the football. The offensive line gave you time. You're not making throws. Receivers aren't running, they're not running the best routes. There's a lot of deep routes, which I think you need. If you're going to be who they are so far, intermediate routes might work out the best. Mason Taylor is your most targeted guy. He's a true freshman. He's struggling a little bit. He's a true freshman in the SEC. You've got some Jimmies and Joes that you probably need to start giving the ball to, finding a way to get that, Keyshawn Booty in space, Jack Bash and Malik Neighbors. Like, you have the weapons. I think you're going to have to change what you thought the scheme of this offense was going to be, because right now when you look at it, there's a lot of quarterback in the pocket. He's got time. The routes are deep. He's patting the ball, and he doesn't have any interceptions, and that's good. But sometimes you're like, hey, take a chance.
Yeah.
Try to fit it in a window. Like, you don't have to be perfect. Like, you probably need to go ahead and see and trust your arm here on this play, because you're trying to be perfect here.
It is it's an intriguing couple battles within the war. Strength against strength, that LSU defense against Tennessee's offense. I just don't see. I mean, Hendon Hooker over a long period of time, right? Trust is developed with consistent behavior over a long period of time. And over a long period of time, I've seen Hendon Hooker make good decisions, protect the football, distribute it well. Like, I don't see LSU all of a sudden making him into something he's not. And I'm with you. My concern for LSU is their inability to take advantage of what Tennessee gives up. Now, I didn't think that Florida was going to be able to do it. And all of a sudden, Anthony Richardson went out there and had a career night against the Vols in Knoxville. But I don't know if Jaden Daniels can do the same thing. I don't know if there's the same weapons at wide receiver. I mean, I think I've been a little whelmed by what I've seen from the receiving corps at this point in the season for LSU, but I do think for whatever reason that this is an intriguing matchup at an intriguing point in the season. LSU is catching Tennessee coming off their bye week. So some chance to maybe get get healthy. I don't know. I don't expect Cedric Tillman to be back, but we're seeing, some other guys step up for the Tennessee Vol at the wide receiver spot. But I just, would you be surprised? I know we don't typically pick games here, but how likely is an LSU upset? You know this team well. You're there in Baton Rouge. You see them a lot. How likely do you feel like this upset victory is?
I mean, there's an opportunity for sure. Like if LSU was able to pull off the victory, I would not come on this show next week and be like shocked. Now, Tennessee's a favorite on the road, and they should be the favorite on the road, right? I mean, we've seen them go into Pitt and change the way they had to win a game, and they kind of change their style in that Pitt game, and they get a victory. Like we've seen them for really 2 years now, and there's not a surprise that they are the team that's favored here. But look, LSU, make no mistake about it, they got the ability, they have the talent. That defense is going to put a game plan together, and I'm interested to see what it is, because they've done a nice job of scheming different opponents based off what that team does well. My question for LSU is, can they make the strides enough offensively to be able to keep up if it does for some reason become a shootout? Like, do they have that ability? This offense is built off quarterback runs, making big plays in the run game, and they've, hit some big plays in the passing game, but it's mostly been Jaden Daniels with his legs. It's been John Emery. It's been Armani Goodwin. It's been in the run game. So, like, I need to see that LSU can go make plays in the passing game. Do they have a chance? Yeah. It's not even crazy if they win this game, but they have to do more in the passing game if they want that opportunity.
I feel like it's become a little bit of a popular pick to go with LSU in the upset bid here. I've heard a couple people make that call this week.
Rat poison. It's rat poison, CD.
You're not hearing it? You're not having it?
No. Anytime you're in the actual city, no, you're not hearing that. That is not something I've heard so far. But look, I do expect a great game. I do. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to show where LSU's at currently. I don't think they're the team that, lost to Florida State. I think they have a higher ceiling than that. Now, what that ceiling looks like, I think this game tells a lot of that story. And for Tennessee, this is a game that they're supposed to win. If they want to get to the point where they're playing for a championship in Atlanta at the end of this year, they're supposed to win this game. So I'll be intrigued to see where both teams are.
All right, that noon window, noon Eastern, is solid. We got the LSU Tennessee game. Also, Arkansas going to Starkville. Mississippi State favored by 8 points here. Interesting one. What are we thinking?
You know what, Hess? I can't help but think, and no disrespect to you and your alma mater, but that Mississippi State let one get away. That the chance to put LSU away earlier in the game, if they could have finished some drives, the game seemed to turn on the Austin Williams muff punt. Like, I think Mississippi State is of the elite top tier in the SEC. Maybe not the same breadth as Georgia and Alabama, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them beat one of those two this year. Like, I think Mississippi State is a lot better than most people are giving them credit for. And I think they'll look back and regret that they didn't win that game in Death Valley a couple weeks ago. Now, not taking anything away from LSU, because I thought they had a great plan and they executed it well defensively, but I don't think people realize just how good Mississippi State is.
I feel like maybe the pollsters did, though, because they're still ranked ahead of LSU and they had the same record. And not to say that like you said, LSU went and won that game. They had a good game plan, but I don't think the pollsters have allowed that to take away from what Mississippi State is, which typically they don't do that. So I'm glad at least that someone is recognizing that this is a team that can go out there and win every game on their schedule.
I mean, you agree with me though, right? You feel the same way about Mississippi State that I do, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, look, I was saying, why are we not talking about Mississippi State like we're talking about Texas A&M coming into the season?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and this might halt pregame in the SEC, and we might not even finish our previews here. I think Mississippi State as a program is ahead of Texas A&M. It's in a better standing than Texas A&M. And when I said that on off campus earlier today, I mean, messages just flowing. And are you crazy? Like, what are you drinking? I'm like, well, tell me how they're not. They have a better conference record over the last 2 years. They've beaten you head to head over the last 2 years. They have stability in their offense and defensive coordinator that you currently don't have. Like, you can have all the things that you have and the bells and whistles and the recruiting classes, but it's about developing in this league as well. And how are they not in better standing? It's not saying 10 years down the road they will be, but currently as we sit, how can I say otherwise?
Hess, who is in charge of Texas A&M's PR? Because I want to hire them. And I said it the other day on our show on the SEC Network. A&M's best season is their off season. They dominate the off season, but when it comes time to actually playing games, all that hype goes away. Like, who's in charge of spinning things for Texas A&M? Because they're doing a tremendous job, and unfortunately, Mississippi State doesn't have that same PR person.
No, I think that's completely fair, because no one was talking about Mississippi State, even though they returned the most production in the SEC from a team that was 500 in the conference, has Will Rogers at quarterback, and also had the head-to-head victory over Texas A&M. It was mind-boggling at the time, and now I think it's even more mind-boggling because I'm like, they just did it again. But I think those are two programs that are going different directions right now. I like Mississippi State in this game. I don't know about the 8 points. It seems like a lot. I think Mississippi State's going to feed off the energy they got from that victory over Texas A&M. Arkansas struggles defending the pass. Good luck. You got Will Rogers coming to town.
That game is in Starkville.
Yeah, it's in Stark Vegas. Yeah,
like, dude, they got a pretty good home schedule this year. Getting a chance to have A&M come to town, Arkansas coming to town. They get Georgia coming to town later in the year. Like, that's a pretty favorable home schedule. And I guess it's just a byproduct of playing in the SEC. It is a grind.
Look,
every team.
If you got Georgia and Alabama on the schedule, throw us a bone and give it to us at home.
Yeah. They get Alabama at home too?
No, but I'm saying you asked for it.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, can y'all just throw us something?
Yeah.
You're going to put these teams on our schedule.
Yeah, no doubt, man. But I'm with you on that. What else? I think I'm two opposite directions, as you said there, for these two programs. So what else we got, Big Turp?
I'm curious about this Missouri-Florida game, also a part of that 12 p.m. slate. But it's in Gainesville, and the Gators are an 11-point favorite, both looking for their first SEC win. Who do you think gets it here? Is it the Gators? I mean, they are that bigger favorite, but Mizzou played Georgia tough.
They did. I think it's the Gators here. Missouri, look, I am tipping my cap to you, like right here, like tip my cap to you for being ready to play that game last week. I don't know how in the hell you got it done. Eli, nice job. Blake Baker, hell of a job. Because that team should have been deflated after what happened in Auburn, Alabama. They weren't, but gosh, you just have to imagine the last 2 weeks have been so taxing on them physically and emotionally. Can they get ready for a third one in the swamp? I just don't think they can get it done.
That gas tank's got to be running dry at this point in time after those two games they played the last 2 weekends. So it'll be tough going on the road here. Florida celebrating homecoming for whatever that means nowadays. But I
used to be directional state U. It's not usually wasn't a conference though.
Yeah, I don't know about those games, the Thursday and Sunday games for South Carolina and Florida. Not a ton to take away from those games. Florida did have some explosiveness and some big scoring plays that I hadn't necessarily seen consistently earlier in the season. Maybe that's starting to be a trend for them since the trip to Knoxville 2 weeks ago. But I think Florida probably wins the game. I don't know if they cover the 11 at this point.
All right, real quick before we hit best bets, A&M last year obviously was in College Station and an 18-point dog. This year they are in Tuscaloosa as a 24-point dog. Is there a miracle happening here?
I mean, Alabama's going to take their frustration after the offseason spat between Jimbo and Nick in this game. It's coming out, right?
It's got to
I
be
mean,
coming
the
out.
crowd's going to be, and Bryant Denny's going to be at an 11. And look, they've won so many games, and they expect to win every game. And I understand it. They've set a standard that's hard to beat. And so, they go to games and they expect to win, and they 99.9% of the time they do win those games, and they don't get a chance to maybe be as enthusiastic as they want to be. Well, that's all coming out this game.
Yeah.
I got a feeling they're going to be cheering all game long.
Revenge factor for beating them last year in College Station.
Yep.
Revenge factor for getting in a spat with your legendary coach. Oh, by the way, Alabama seems to be hitting their stride right now. And there's like a fish. It's kind of flopping a little on its side out there in the ocean. There's a little trail of blood that's coming, and Alabama smells that blood. And they're going to absolutely they're not taking the foot off. And one thing Coach Saban usually does is takes the foot off a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening here.
Oh, there's no throttle. There's no throttle. And for A&M, I can't find a way that you're going to be in this football game. I know we probably said the same thing at this time a year ago, but I can't get there. There's offensively, there's no Smith, there's no Isaiah Spiller from a year ago. I can't get you to a victory here. And for all the reasons you laid out, for Alabama to be motivated for this game, there was no look ahead from Arkansas last week. They did what they had to do in that game. And I really don't think it matters which quarterback for Alabama plays. I don't. They're going to go out there and they're going to be so focused for 60 minutes that I can't see them even struggling for any portion of this game.
Can you imagine a script that allows them to win? Like last year, Calzada came out of nowhere and had a career night himself, and maybe that was – and the defense played really, really well. But we're seeing Alabama play at home. Offensive line's playing better. Receivers are playing better. Not sure of the status of Bryce Young at this point in time. But that offensive line for A&M is not good at all. And you think about what that defensive front for Alabama is doing right now in terms of licking their lips and getting some revenge for last year, and how that the big plays they give up end up costing them the game. That's going to be an interesting script to watch play out on Saturday.
All right, real quick before we get to best bets, a game that we've talked a lot about, Georgia. Obviously, Auburn right now, they're reeling and they're 3-2, but the Mizzou game, the way it played out, you almost feel like that was a loss. You blow a 17-point lead to LSU. You're 30-point dogs to Georgia. Is there anything in this game for you? Is it a Georgia steamroll? Is there anything that Brian Harsin and Auburn can do? I don't see it. And the times there in Auburn, Alabama, we all know kind of what's going on the outside and what that really looks like. I can't fathom they're going to be a factor into this game.
Dude,
I saw some fight last week. Make no mistake, I saw fight, but Georgia's looking to bounce back as well.
Yeah, but they were looking to bounce back this past week against Missouri. Like, that's why I went all in on the Bulldogs. One of my best bets, my losing best bets. I thought they would have the focus level from that they didn't have against Kent State. And they just didn't. They come out, turn the football over twice in the first half. Are allowing some big plays to Brady Cook in that Missouri offense. Like, just very surprising, some of the things that we're seeing right now from Georgia. So the fact that they're favored by 30 points, I got burned last week by Georgia when they were favored by 28 points. I don't know that I would be all that gung-ho about laying the points right now, given what I've seen from Georgia the last two weeks.
All right. Speaking of best bets, Big Terp. Another losing week for your boy. Go ahead and let the people know.
It's all right. Over the last 2 weeks, your aggregate up. So CD last week, 2-2, misses on Georgia and Arkansas.
I feel like I got robbed on the Arkansas when it's a 5-point game at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Are you kidding me? I mean, you can't.
Yeah, I'm right
and
there
a
with
chance
you.
to backdoor it late in the game. Like that was set for the perfect backdoor opportunity.
Yeah, Vegas will take all those chips, sir. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
I mean,
they'll do it in the
cool
Bahamas
story,
as
bro.
well. Anywhere.
On that bad snap on the punt, you're just counting the winnings already.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, this is sweet. Nope, that's a miss, unfortunately. We were all in that boat. Hit Kentucky +7, hit Mississippi State -3. The Kentucky one was the same thing. Down early, come back. Okay, this is setting up pretty nicely. They could even win this game. That ends up being a hit. Mississippi State is never really a doubt there. 8-1 on the year.
Very average. Very average right now.
It's not losing. In terms of units, it might be, but we don't do that. We do records. Hess 7-8-1 on the year after the 1-2 week. Hit Kentucky +7. There we go. Now miss also on Arkansas and miss on LSU.
I thought I was going down 17-0. I'm like, oh, I'm not getting -8.5. When Greg Brooks intercepted that pass and he looked like he was going to go, I was like, did I just find a way to win this bet? Now, as an LSU guy, I didn't care. I was happy that the Tigers, the Tigers that weren't the home team, found a way to win the game. But
it looked like he was going the distance for all those holding an LSU -8.5 ticket. It looked like your dreams had been answered there, but
I know.
Alas.
But hey, you know what? For it being my school, I typically don't even put LSU in my best bets. Felt good about it, but hey, they found a way to get a victory. And now, look, you know what I got to do? Last time I said it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick 4 games, and I'm not going to lose one. I went 3-0-1. I didn't lose.
Hess, I don't know if I like the card, though. You like the card for 4 deep this week?
I don't love it at all, but you know what?
know, right?
Scared money don't make money. I told you that. That's your guy's quote. That's Billy Napier's quote. All right? So I got to go out there. I got to redeem myself. What 4 games? We won't know until probably in the wee hours of Friday night or very early Saturday morning.
Stay tuned. Check in social media. We'll get that pushed out there by kickoff for sure.
And then what's this little thing at the bottom here? Oh, Big Trips locked.
Oh, okay, okay.
Debuted 2 weeks ago. We're 5 weeks into the season. I got 2 games on the record, but 0 losses. So
guy puts out 1 bet there, wins his first bet, make sure that everybody knows. Yeah, I mean, look, anybody could have picked Kentucky +7. That was the easiest bet on the slate.
What was the one you pushed on, Big Turp?
Shit, what was it? We all pushed on it 2 weeks ago. It was
no, it wasn't Florida. I won that one.
We go back in the archives here. It was Arkansas +2.
That's what it was.
On the doink.
Should have been a winner. Should have been not even a close winner had KJ not fumbled there going in early in the ball game.
Terrible.
This does feel like a different week. It feels like a different week because last week's CD, every time we brought up a game in pregame, he's like, lock it up. Yeah. Lock it. Put up. Yeah. Lock it. Put it up.
The gambling gods don't like arrogance. There was too much arrogance, too much sauce. I was too much out there.
Yeah, you know what was a winner, though? Braves money line. And if you had a futures ticket out on NL East, come on.
Hey, imagine being a Mets fan and thinking this whole time, imagine you're going to win the East.
You don't even need to finish that sentence. Just imagine being a Mets fan.
Enjoy that wild card round.
Oh, they're losing. There's no question they're losing that wild card round.
Who they got?
Padres, I think. But
yeah, I think it is Padres.
They're playing themselves at this point.
All right, last thing before we get out of here. Ole Miss -18 against Vanderbilt. Like, that seems like a line that we should all jump on, right?
I mean, Vandy's coming off a bye, dude. Ole Miss just got done with a big physical game against Kentucky. I mean, but here's the thing. I put my money in the hands of Vanderbilt getting 42 against Alabama, which in hindsight was a poor. I mean, in what world does that sound like a good place to put your money?
Not this one.
Bad idea, Jeans.
Not this one. Okay, well, we'll take a look at the board. We'll give you some games, again, later on in the week. We always put those out there on our social medias. Remember, Instagram and Twitter, it is the same handle at Pregaming the SEC. You can find us on YouTube. Just search Pregaming the SEC. Subscribe to our page there. Of course, do the whole deal. Spotify, Apple, you can find us there as well every single week. This has been Week 6 of Pregaming the SEC. Remember, brought to you by Walk-Ons Sports Bistro online. It's walk-ons.com. Good luck to our best bets, fellas. Even though we don't know what those are currently.
Yeah, they'll come to us.
They'll come to us like they always do, organically. All right.
Yeah.
We will see y'all next week. Same time, same place. Pregaming the SEC. See you then.